You're listening to the Empowering Process podcast with your host, Gail Kraft. Listen as she holds frank discussions around how your purpose, being present, and trusting your power impacts your life. Whether you're an entrepreneur, leader, or developing your vision, you'll find wisdom and insights you can utilize right now. Welcome your host, Gail Kraft.
Now, hello, everybody. Gail Kraft here from the Empowering Process podcast. And I have with me an amazing woman. Oh, my goodness. So this is Lois Koffi. And it's not the coffee you drink, but, I do have mine. There you go. There you go. And she is here to share her story around the subject of shame. And so at some point, Lois's career had pushed her to the edge. There was a recession going on. She, like most of us, when you start to stress and get inside yourself, she started to get sick. Her car was repossessed and she was sleeping on a friend's floor. I mean, I've been there, Lois, so I know exactly what that's like. I was ready to sell pencils on the corner of the street. She went from 6 figures and a dream team to nothing. Yes, been there. She was anxious. She was depressed. She couldn't imagine how she could possibly bounce back from such a hard thud on the ground. There was so much shame and the heavy cloud of debt looming over her head. To bring herself back to life, she began connecting with spiritual mentors and life coaches to guide her forward. As she did the work, she realized how much more focused her mindset was on greatness. And honestly, Lois, thank you so much for joining us and share this journey.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me because maybe even 6 months ago, I don't know if I would have been able to have this conversation. The journey continues, and it's been amazing how much shame I've got to look at, shine a light on, but in that shadow work, I'm calling it, and blessing and releasing and saying thank you because it was a great teacher for me.
Right? And what's interesting is the more that you peel back and uncover and look at and accept shame, you realize that so many choices and decisions are based around shame. About, oh, I'm not going to go that way because no one would like it if I did that. That would be awful. I have to go this way, right? Or I'm not going to tell you what's going on because you're going to judge me. So that's shame. Fear of being judged. I mean, so much shame in our life, right? And when we start to face it, like you said, it just keeps coming up and gets clearer and clearer and clearer. So I'll tell a little bit about oh my God, my story, which is similar to yours. And it was at that point, that lowest of low, that I realized what I had to work on. And that was the shame and the guilt, right? And I had given up everything, given up my business, given up my life in San Diego to move north and support a motivational speaker who I totally admired the work that she did and wanted to help her build her commune. She was building a site where people could come rather than her go. And when I got there, after giving up everything, the tables turned and I didn't ever work on what I got there for. I heard, and this should have been a clue, Gail, I need you too. So she's coming from a place of lack, needing me too. Do this for me, clean that up for me, take care of that. And it was all the confrontational stuff that she didn't have the balls, quite frankly, to do herself, right? And so that started to spiral downward. And it got really to the point where I couldn't even function working there anymore. And I was in my apartment on my couch thinking, I was so disappointed. My heart was breaking. I thought I was dying from a heart attack. I was ready to call 911. This shit works on your body, man. Yeah, right. And so I made a decision. I was either going to call 911 and let the American Medical Association take care of me, or I was going to figure out why I allowed myself to get into this situation. What was it within me that was lacking? Right now, I figured that out and left with no job, no customers, no home, in debt, right? Right. Thinking,
Woohoo!
woohoo! So now what am I going to do? And I started to incorporate all of the tools that I had learned and used on my clients on myself, right? Heal yourself coach. And I've been healing myself coach ever since. But
Mm,
to have gotten to that level before waking up, my goal is to help people before they get to that level.
awesome.
Right. And so with that, I'm sure that feeds so much into your story. And let's talk about Lois's journey and the shame and the sadness and the guilt and how awesome it is when we figure out how to clear that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, because I had you summarized it beautifully, kind of the the beginning. I'm gonna do my I love Paul Harvey. I don't know if you ever listen to him. When
Yes.
you know, I always say, and now Paul Harvey with the rest of the story,
Yeah.
because to be honest, I didn't really understand the root cause of what was driving me starting after the recession when I lost everything, and it was so debilitating. I remember for the first time in my life, at least in my adult life. I'm sure it happened when I was a kid, and it was actually probably re-triggering some trauma when my mom left because I was born in a mental institution hospital. I was whisked away to foster care the first day out of her womb and was tossed around to many different adults. And so I know that my shame actually was literally and figuratively born in the womb and
No abandonment issues there.
none, not
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
So I was positive Pollyanna for the first 29 years of my life. To be honest, I was really, I believe, protected by the divine, really, really connected and not really knowing it. You know, raised in a pretty religious home in a small town in Iowa. You were kind of expected to go to church. If you didn't, they were going to talk about you and say you're going to hell and all the things, right? But I at least that I didn't get all that. I didn't, you know, people around me were racist and you know a lot of bigotry and all these things, but I was totally ignorant. But that those not enough wounds, and I was actually told by a spiritual healer, she says, "No, you got more than that. You got never enough." And I'm like, "Oh, great. I signed up for a even bigger one, I guess." And so I didn't really understand that what happened in 2007, 2008 reawakened that trauma. And for the first time in my adult life, sorry, I'm going in circles here, I remember shaking so bad and just like feeling so worthless because my bank account had been cleaned out and my car had been repossessed and the negativity around that and all of it. I was just so filled with shame, but I didn't know that's what it was. It didn't have a name. So I actually went kind of lower vibration, depression, all of the things, started a family and went on this journey until 2020, carrying this big bag of shame and some guilt and feeling worthless and that never enough. And so that drove me to become a workaholic, to become a binge drinking workaholic, to want a divorce, to thinking, oh, it's, you know, I have to find all the answers outside of myself. I can't trust myself. And I became a codependent people pleaser in a few different organizations that I think back in my 20s when I was ignorance is bliss, Lois. I would have never ever gotten involved in some of these organizations that were very masculine dominant, very go go go, push push push, like you said, that the need to attend all these meetings or the need to work 7 days a week. That was not my truth. However, it's a really cool story. You know, in 2020, my mom died right after my brother, who, bless his heart, was an alcoholic. And they were two of the biggest, intense, shame-filled figures in my life since birth. And when they died, it woke me up. Like, they had to die to wake me up, which was really heavy for me, because I all of a sudden realized, whoa, I'm feeling something different. And it was like the veil had been lifted, and I went back to, why am I doing this? Why am I binge drinking? Why am I a workaholic? Why do I want to get a divorce? Why? You know, the little kid questions, right? The why? And oops, you're muted. I don't know if that matters.
No, best questions ever.
Okay.
Why? Yeah.
So anyway, to this could be like a 5-hour interview, but the next step was I was so numb, you know, after they died, I didn't cry. And I was like, whoa, why is that? I had a friend commit suicide, also same thing. I didn't cry. And I'm like, whoa. So all of these events were happening at the beginning of the pandemic. And then I had to figure out how to run a business in the middle of a pandemic while homeschooling children. But thankfully that intuition, I didn't know it at the time, but that super conscious, that intuition, that inner child little girl said, hey, you have time to slow down now, because you don't have to go to all these meetings. You don't have to be all things for all people. You're in a shelter in place situation. Why don't you take care of yourself? Why don't you take care of me, that inner girl, that little girl that was wounded so long ago as a kid, but then as an adult in 2007, 2008. And so I started a podcast called Healthy and Wealthy and Wise, and I started interviewing guests. And one of the guests had written a book called The Closet Spiritualist. And he actually had a nutrition company, and we were going to actually talk about something nutrition, but he said, nope, my guides are saying, I need to help you. And I'm like, what? You need to know something. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is woo woo. I'm feeling a little weird right now. And this was towards the end of 2020, when I had started slowing down, was really not as much of a workaholic anymore. Still binge drinking though. And he said, you know, you're here for a purpose, and you got to look in the mirror. You got to go within. And I was like, how do I do that? And he didn't really give me an answer other than go and play with plant medicine, ayahuasca, psilocybin. And so I started on that path because I was so numb, and I was meditating, but the meditation, it wasn't really helping me. It was almost like another addiction, right? It was another coping mechanism, because I didn't know how to go within, because I had been so blocked for so long. And so I couldn't connect with my heart. I was so stuck in my head. And so through the plant medicine journey, through doing monthly plant medicine journeys for those first 6 months in 2021, I was able to cry, to release, to have some of the loop, the trauma. You know, they say animals can release trauma right away. Humans, we hold on to it. The body keeps the score. So I started having those somatic releases, and starting to feel love for myself again, starting to see my husband differently, starting to not feel as much of a worthless mother, starting to drink less, just naturally. And then over, like, towards the end of the year of 2021, keeping in mind I still didn't realize it was shame by this point, just so you know. I had to release a lot of trauma, go through all that plant medicine, and work with some shamanic healers, working with this mentor who wrote The Closet Spiritualist. We would talk about once every other month. And so in October, I had a really, really dark night of the soul journey on plant medicine. Like, the whole night was a dark hole of hell. Never had that before. And the facilitator said, well, it sounds like you're lacking compassion for yourself. It sounds like the whole night you were beating yourself up. And I was like, oh, you're right. I was judging myself for drinking too much. I was judge, you know, jury, and, you know, executioner all night long. And it was so scary. And so I started studying self-compassion. I started studying Kuan Yin and all of these amazing goddesses who, you know, green Tara and all of these divine feminine beings, and realizing I had been so stuck in the masculine energies, not male per se, but the masculine dominant energies for so long, because that was my fight or flight coping mechanism for what I discovered through the self-compassion study and reading the book You're Not Broken by Christopher Michael Duncan, where he talked about, not enough and shame and all of these different things. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's my root cause of all of this. And so I tapped back in to my inner child and started loving on her. And I tapped back into the super conscious, trusting my intuition more, which was really scary for me, Gail, because I was so used to just having other people tell me what to do and not listening to myself, which brought me to that rock bottom moment again, because you told the story of my 2007 rock bottom, but this was my ultimate wake up call, because had I not started on that journey, which led me to discovering how much I hated myself, how much shame I judged myself so harshly, it was like, I don't know if I'd be alive today. I really don't, because I had some reckless behaviors, and I had, I totally understood all my friends who committed suicide. I totally understood my brother and all my friends who died of alcoholism. I had so much compassion. First, I had to have it for me and forgive myself and love myself for all of the things. And then I was able to, send that love and compassion to all of my, friends who died, my brother and my dad and my mom, because I realized when they died, there was a part of me that was relieved, because I was so hurt, and I felt so judged also by them for what happened in 2007, 2008. They were some of the biggest judges standing there like, wow, what did you do, Lois? This is so irresponsible. And that's, again, brought back all of the stuff from my childhood. So in summary, I had to learn this shadow, this big bag, this heavy dark cloud, whatever that was around me called shame. I instead of, hiding from it or stuffing it down and running from it like I had been for those 14 years, I got to look at it and shine a light on it and say, I love you, thank you, I love you, thank you. And it's still coming up this week. Summer solstice, there's a lot of energy moving through. I'm
Always.
still having, like, whoa, that's interesting, so been revisiting some of that even as we speak. So that's the Cliff Notes version of what I've been.
Definitely Cliff Notes, definitely Cliff. I call it shame the hidden one, because that through my journey, I've been doing personal development since I was 21. Bits here, bits there, and then took a deep dive around 2010, 2011. And if you had asked me about shame, I'd be like, I've got no shame, right? I was so on the masculine side, Lois, when a teenager and other girls were dating. I hung out with the guys after the dates. I was one of the guys.
Yeah.
Right.
I can relate to that.
Right. Right. So yeah, one of the guys. And I would say that when shame finally, like you, reared its ugly head, I was shocked at how deep it was and how ancestral it was, right?
Yeah, I have a great story there too, but I didn't want to go on and on
Right.
and on.
No.
And
Oh yeah, we can talk about the ancestral one, because that's the most recent that I've been working on, because it's come up. I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't mine, this is yours. But if I don't clear it, it's going to continue carrying on. So let's work on it, right? Right. So ancestral shame. So we'll talk a little bit about energy and DNA, and then I'll ask you to tell me your story. So, we all know that we're atoms, table's atoms, water's atoms. Guess what? We're atoms, and they're energy, right? And when a fetus is created, those two energies, those two atoms from two beings come together to make one. So you've got mama's history and daddy's history, who has grandma's history and grandpa's. So even the Bible says the sins of the father for 7 generations. That is what it's talking about. Not evil sin, you bad thing. There is no evil sin, you bad thing. It's this weight, this energetic shame, this hurt
Mhm.
from all the way. And then you get to carry that and make your own too. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So talk a little bit about your ancestral shame and or that you have uncovered.
Yeah, and I know there's many different paths on this, so I respect all paths. I'll share mine. It's a little unorthodox, but I think it's also becoming more commonplace. I didn't understand any of the ancestor stuff until I did go into the plant medicine world. And so when I did a mushroom journey last, it would have been, gosh, September of 2021, I think, my shaman said, later. He didn't actually clarify it that night, or if he did,
Mhm.
I didn't hear it. I wasn't
Right.
maybe ready to hear it. He said, "Yeah, your ancestors are blocking you from some of your spiritual gifts and from something." And so that came full circle, in different events. I would see my dad, I would see my grandmothers, I would see, the matriarchal women in my life who were also growing up in the Depression or Germany or the Netherlands. They had a lot of shame and rules and control, in a male dominated world. So they could never really be themselves. I was able to reconnect with my grandfather, and I saw his shame, his anger, his guilt. And then on an ayahuasca journey, I think, let me take a step back. So I could see it, I could feel it, within the plant medicine journey, and I understood it
Mhm.
like at a soul level, not a head level, but a heart and a soul level. And that allowed me, I cried a ton. I was able to have compassion for my ancestors. And then recently, I did do an ayahuasca journey, and I actually talked to the guy beforehand. And I also worked with a soul memory practitioner that same week. And I said, I know my ancestors have a message for me, and I'm not at this point skilled enough to just, sit and meditate and talk to them at that point in time. And he said, "Yeah, no problem. I got you. We'll work with grandfather tobacco, and that's an ancestral healing for all of the shamans, the Peruvians, the Colombians, everyone in South America, Mexico. There's a tobacco called mapacho, and it actually, it's not a psychedelic. It's actually tobacco, and you smoke it, and then you sit and conversate with your ancestors. So I did that along with a soul memory practitioner who helped me clear some ancestral lineage
Right.
stuff from my soul, all in the same week. And oh my gosh, I had the biggest like awakening moment, physically, psychically, like everything was opened up for me when I did that mapacho ceremony, and I laid down on the ground under the stars and was just like in this meditative state. My ancestors came to me, and they showed me their healed and wise side, which was all about love, laughter, music, community,
Right.
acceptance, zero shame, zero any of it, right? Then they showed me the unhealed side, which was the shame, the guilt, the judgment.
Mhm.
Judgment of self and others was a big one in my ancestral lineage, and I think probably everyone's, right? Especially with religion and, all of the patriarchal stuff.
Well, that's how you stay safe. They're wrong, we're right.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
protecting, right?
Yeah.
Self-preservation. So then after it was really hard on me to sit in that space, but they said I needed to just trust us. And so I hung there and I felt it. I smelled it. I cried, and all of these different
Awesome.
things. And then I said to them, "What is the lesson here? What were you trying to teach me with this?" And they said, "Well, you signed up for it. You came into this life to break the generational curses of shame, guilt, judgment. You chose this, when I hit 29 and I lost everything and I went into that dark cloud for 14, 15 years. They said you needed to wear it. You needed to understand it. You needed to also then have compassion for yourself. So then you could truly love yourself through the good, the bad, the ugly, so that you can have compassion and love for others at a much, much deeper cellular level. And then, of
Mhm.
course, break that generational curse moving forward. And then, of course, healing it backwards. We go back, 7 generations on both sides. So by being able to heal
Yeah.
all of that, I know that it's changing, the DNA structure and all of that kind of stuff. So it was
It's a
my,
gestalt reaction. Once
okay.
you change, so you think of gestalt, think of it as like a chain of pearls. And once you straighten out one pearl, all of the following pearls straighten out. It's
Yeah.
getting, when you get to the root. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I cried and I cried and I cried. And since it was ayahuasca, I don't know how many people have ever done that, but I will tell you my next favorite part, although it's going to sound kind of gross. I, I asked them, okay, I got it. I think I got the lesson. Can I be done with this lesson now? And they laughed and they said, yes, you can be done. And so I quickly got up from my mat. I felt the vomit, the purge coming, and they had a puke station not too far from me. And I jumped around. I could feel it coming. I tried to move my body just to help it because I'm like, I'm ready to let this shit go.
Literally.
I'm letting it go. I'm letting it go. And I had the deepest, most disgusting, like it came from the deepest part of my gut all the way up and out into the bucket. And I spit, I laughed, I cried. I literally after that weekend, Gail, and I know a lot of it had to do with letting go of that shame and guilt of my ancestors and all that. Different parts of my brain opened up. I came away just still feeling physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually and psychically just different. And it was powerful. And I feel like I came away with more love and bliss and joy authentically because I got it on so many levels so that I can now have more love and more light to share with the world as a result of those lessons and then learning to love myself all over again.
I know so many people now who have taken the ayahuasca journey, and have come away saying they reached a level they didn't even realize existed, and they're completely different people.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm going to become a facilitator of this medicine or if not that mushrooms at some point because for me it was for me because I was so between the alcohol, the work, the people pleasing and codependence with many relationships and the inauthenticity that brought forth for me, I was so stuck. Talk therapy was not working. Even just the soul memory past life regression stuff was not working. Trust me, I did a lot of things to start that journey. And for me, I think for anyone who's like really, really, really deeply as stuck as I was, and it was really hard to go within, I would say consider it. And yet I also respect that there's a lot of modalities out there and it's not for everyone.
Right, exactly. It's just one of many. Um, the thing with talk therapy, so do I do talk therapy? I give people exercises to do that bring them surprising ahas,
Yeah,
right?
that's great.
Right. So yeah, so it's and I use quantum linguistics frequently to twist the brain, right? So that people start thinking from the other quadrants in the brain that they have that's lying dormant. Let's wake those up, right?
Mhm.
But it's a slower process, right? It's a process, but it's a slower process. And it will get you there. And once you open up, like you have opened up, once the door is open up, it's like a tidal wave coming through, like those connections that you have behind you, that electricity. And so I'm going to share this. I don't think I've ever shared this on the podcast. So woo woo Gail, I would say this was probably 2016 ish. I was out in the desert. I think I was at Joshua Tree, and it was spring and solstice, and I think a eclipse of the moon. I mean, it was a crazy, and I'm out in Joshua Tree for the night, actually for the whole week. Yes. So a bunch of us got up and we did this, honor the East, honor the West, right? At the peak of the solstice, right? And, we still have some time before we have to go to wherever we're going. So let's hit the bed. And, I don't know, I'm telling you the wrong story, but this one came up, so I'm going to. As I hit the bed and started to fall asleep, and it probably was the same weekend, my totem, a new totem in my life showed up. And it's a dragon. It literally came up and I started flying around the desert. Now, in this same environment, I did a meditation, and I have to tell you, and the meditation was intended to work on perceptual positions. So you don't have to meditate to do this, but you do have to visualize. So I looked at, okay, if I wanted to be this type of person and not, not who I'm presenting myself to be, what would that look like? What does it look like through my own eyes? What does it look like through Lois's eyes? What does it look like from a group of people's eyes? What does it look like from the United States of America eyes? What does it look like from the Earth's eyes? What does it look like from the moon's eyes? And I kept going until I was in the freaking matrix. That thing behind you, right? And I turned around, I'm like, where am I? I'm in the universal mind. I am, holy crap, this is who we are. This is what we are, right? I'm getting shivers just remembering it. And when I finally came, I didn't want to leave, and they sent me back. Right? No, you're not done. Go home. Right? I realized that I had been meditating for 4 hours. Right? It was at that point in my life that I realized that there is so much more than what we understand. And I have to be open to possibilities that are greater than anything imaginable. And your life shifts when that happens. Because when you start looking at things from a super perspective, from a super being perspective, right? And there is no judgment, there is no shame, there is no guilt. As my clients come to me and, I'm a little bit embarrassed about saying this. I'm like, don't be. You can tell me anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Because I don't care. And it's not that I don't care. It's like, I don't care. I'm up here. I don't care. Right? I'm watching you from a position of love and potentiality. Right? Not from a position of third dimensional judgment. And you don't need to be protected with me. And that's the thing. I think with Lois, you've gotten to that point where people don't need to feel protected around you anymore, because you don't need to feel protected. And with that, you're not divorced, are you?
No.
I
can tell you all of the rest of the story whenever you're ready.
Go ahead. Tell me more.
Because that was the biggest thing for me that started the journey. I was so thinking that I was gonna, my wounded ego and wounded subconscious was like, I married my father. He is a wounded man. I don't think he's ever going to change, right? That was my wounds talking. And so I even told my mentor that. I said, I don't know if this is going to work. And he's like, Lois, I don't know either. All I know is he's a mirror of you. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, this is all an illusion. Every experience, every person, every sign, if you're conscious of it and willing to go there, because it's not easy, it means that you have some work to do I saved my marriage. I not only saved it, and my husband would be so embarrassed right now, but we have the best sex life we've ever had since we've been together 14 years. Just this week, we met on the summer solstice at our first date in Southern California. And before, then life happened for us. And we were both wounded souls that came together to lean on each other, which then led into a very, us against the world codependent relationship and all of the things. And it's so amazing. We've both done tons and tons and tons of healing work within. A year ago, May, was trying to diet, by the way, I've coached thousands of people and helped people lose thousands and thousands of pounds. I was a marathoner, Ironman triathlete, blah, blah, blah. And I still managed because of the 14 years of carrying shame and all that weight. I gained about 30 pounds. Most of it was during the pandemic. However, just since, because that diet last May, it was trying to solve a problem. It was trying to be a quick fix. It was one of those, magic pill solution things. It wasn't really my true choice. So when I got into understanding and owning my shame and loving myself, and I started using the principles that are inside of the Magnetic Mind book, You're Not Broken. And I said, I choose the end result of health and vitality. I choose the end result of health and vitality, and I embody that. You talked earlier about visualization. Affirmations are not working for me, and so I had to embody it and start visualizing it and feeling into it. And sure enough, it didn't happen right away, but since October, I've lost 25 of the 30 pounds I lost or that I gained, since really roughly about 2016, when I really was into heavy drinking and heavy people pleasing and all the shame stuff that was driving me that I didn't even know. So coming from a place of true choice, and I did diet, I didn't do anything other than just be me and embody and release, somatically. And then the weight just started pouring off. So best marriage, best sex, lost 30 pounds. I have so much joy and natural bliss in my heart that just exudes. My clients see me differently. My skin, my aura, everything has evolved because I released a lot of that shame and guilt and suffering. I changed my relationship with all of it, and I'm grateful for it now. So as within, so without, right? As above, so below. And now when I go back and I remember hearing those things like, your husband's a mirror to you, your circumstances, your results, we measure oftentimes our success by our results. All of it is an illusion, and it just mirrored back to me what I had to heal, what I chose to heal, what I got to heal, and set me on that journey. And now it's last thing is it's transformed my business. Now I call myself a transformational sales coach. My programs really bring together that, I call it the sacred union of the masculine and the feminine, life coaching, spiritual coaching with the sales and the logical, the goals setting. So I'm like, with me, you're going to get more of a holistic approach, not just a lead generation and sales tactic that can make you $20,000 a month, Gail.
Which
that
doesn't work, right?
Well, it worked for me, but then I saw that did study that was curious to me. I was like, I was doing it and I was teaching people how to do it, but so many people were like I was. They were stuck in their head.
Yeah.
And so they also were mirrors of me of, okay, so they can't just have this lead generation and sales tactic. They got to have the transformational work too. So I built that all into my programs now, and I'm relaunching actually everything as we are talking this. My clients are now having much, much bigger transformational breakthroughs than ever before. Not surprising, right? Because I had to go first.
Right.
And so it's transformed my business in a way that now I mean, I care, but I really don't care how much money I make. Whereas the Lois a year ago thought, I got to make $40,000 a month. I I got to do this. This has to be done. I cannot, rest
So
until.
there's a word of lack and need,
I know, right?
right?
I got to. I got to. I have
Right.
to. I should. Yeah, all of that has been transformed by uncovering and healing the shame.
And I will tell you, Lois, some of my best friends who have gotten to this point where they don't care what they make, they just care about why they do what they do, are multi fucking millionaires. And it like, Gail, the money just coming. And and I'm just doing my thing. Right. And the thing is helping people elevate themselves and their business and their relationship and their life, not just sales, but themselves holistically. So, the people who get it, that we're an integrated being, are the people who are achieving whatever it is that their hearts desire. So, Lois, I know that you have a podcast and I know that you have a program. So why don't you share with everybody your podcast information and how they can get in touch with you if they want to know more about what you do?
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, it's called Healthy and Wealthy and Wise, which again is a whole nother story. When I was given that name from my intuition and super conscious at the time, I didn't embody that title very well. So I even talked about that recently. So it's kind of ironic, those gifts that we are given along the way that help actually convict us and save us too. It's Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise. You can go to iTunes. It's on iHeartRadio. It's also in a Facebook group on Facebook. Just look for Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise, or Lois Koffi's Healthy and Wealthy and Wise. But my website also has that on it. So loiskoffi.com, LOISKOFFI.com. And then on my resources tab is where I'll have my magnetic mind stuff, where I'll have the information. I have free resources and tools about my 4-step formula for proven lasting results for your best health, your best wealth, and your best wisdom.
And I'll have all of that information in the write-up. So thank you so much, Lois. You're right. We could have gone on forever. I'm like writing down notes and I'm like, nope. It will never stop if I ask these questions.
Oh.
So everybody, thank you so much for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. If this brought up a question for you, by all means, type it in. Maybe it'll be something that Lois and I could get back together and kind of answer. Who knows?
That would be fun.
That would be awesome. If you like this, by all means, let us know that you like it. And if you know somebody who maybe could benefit from the discussion we had, share it out to them. Let them know, because we care. We care about you. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Lois.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. Be sure to visit Gail at gailcraft.com to learn more about how she serves thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and goal seekers. And remember, if you like this broadcast, be sure to share and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.